Hello and welcome back to this Downfield Idealistic Crusade. Today I'm going to go over my latest arrivals from the Warner Archive. A little bit behind in getting some Blu-ray updates out, but I'm going to try and make it much more of a regular thing for this channel. So again, just going to go over the titles I picked up in the last sale, and of course, a lot of everybody's shipping has been, obviously delayed quite a bit due to COVID and other things. So just doing a nice catch-up on various titles that have come to me via the mail. So we'll just go in rough chronological order, and I'll talk a little bit about each title. So first had, of course, pick up the beautiful 4K restoration they did, and huge update title for Sergeant York, which prior to this, they had the pretty good 2-disc DVD set from the Gary Cooper Signature Collection. But, that was really starting to show its age, and I've actually seen this run in various festivals and stuff, and they couldn't get a print of the film because apparently there were no viable print elements really, so they actually wound up showing that DVD. I've seen it projected on a big screen before. So this was a real surprise and really amazing title, one of the best titles Warner Archive did this past year of 2020. So this is an exceptional update. It does carry over all the extras from the DVDs. You get the Janine Basinger commentary, you get the making of featurette they did, plus a vintage short and a classic Looney Tunes short as well. Again, Warner Brothers has always been very good about putting accompanying Looney Tunes cartoons or Merry Melodies shorts, or ones that obviously are tied to the thematics of the film or from the same year. So you get a nice accompanying short as well. So pretty much carrying over everything from the 2-disc DVD, but the restoration is absolutely stunning. If you own the DVD and you're kind of hesitant, do I need to upgrade? This is one of those. It's a must. It's one of the best discs they've ever done. Full 4K catalog restoration, absolutely stunning. One of the real classic World War II pictures, without question. Academy Award winner. It's one of Gary Cooper's most iconic films. Phenomenal supporting cast, and of course, Max Center score being classic Warner Brothers, and directed by Howard Hawks. That's, it's a Hawks picture. It must be in your library. That's just there's no getting around that. So essential title to pick up. This next one, I could not believe that they did. This is a really deep catalog title. Again, also a release from this past year of 2020. And it's really big for me because, of course, all the Bond connections. And I'm obsessed with seeing the various other films that Bond directors did, particularly the early films they made before the Bond series really got started. So I also picked this up because, of course, I'm on a crusade to rewatch all of the Sean Connery performances on film. So this is a very early film, and it's important because this is the 1957 film Action of the Tiger, which is an MGM picture directed by Terrence Young, and Sean Connery has a very small supporting performance in it. And this is actually the film they first met on, and of course, developed a starting relationship that would culminate on Dr. No in 1962. So it's been ages since I've seen this. I saw it once. They ran it on TCM years and years ago. I remember being super excited. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize that Connery just had a small supporting performance. But, he is good in the scenes that he's in, at least from what I remember. So I'm very excited to be able to go back and rewatch this. And it is, a new transfer and everything. Lossless original mono, but no extras or anything. But this is a very, very rare title, and it's especially difficult to see the early Terrence Young films, particularly the British ones, which most of those still don't have good video releases. There's some that are out in PAL on DVD in Region 2, but outside of that, you can't see any of the early Warwick films that Cubby Broccoli produced, which actually most of the production team on those rolled over into the early Bond films. But Terrence Young did a number of films for big studios. This is the one he did for MGM in 1957, and I'm looking forward to really rewatching it. So this was a real shock and pleasant surprise that they did. So these next three are all ones I've been meaning to pick up, just kept putting off, and every time the sale rolls around, I try to chip away at some more. And this one's, again, really great upgrade for a DVD title. Unfortunately, it's not a big deluxe special edition like you would really hope it would be, but this is admittedly a very niche title that only the real diehards of this director are really going to want to seek out. But it's a great film. And that, of course, is 1961's Colossus of Rhodes, which is the first credited film that Sergio Leone directed. It's, of course, a Italian sword and sandal film in the great rush of sword and sandal films that were just cranked out in Italy post all of the 50s big budget historical epic films that were shot at Cinecittà in Rome and shot with Italian money and Italian production crews, and they were hugely popular in Italy. So they just cranked out a bunch of knockoffs and their own varieties throughout the 50s into the 60s, pretty much until Leone comes out with Fistful of Dollars and really jumpstarts the Italian westerns craze. But so he had done work before. He had done many films as assistant director, second unit. He had actually technically taken over the last film he was on before this, but it was credited to another director who started, who had fallen ill during the shoot. So this was the first film he had full creative control over, as it were, or at least to an extent. And, despite being limited in budget and the scope process they're using is based on CinemaScope, so it has some of the distortion problems and stuff. That does not hold him back. I mean, this is a riotous, fun, dark, gnarly, sword and sandal picture. And even though this is the English language version, where they're obviously dubbed over, and it is cut a little bit from the Italian release version and the version in Europe, it's a fantastically entertaining picture. I think it's really great. And I think you see a lot of Leone's flourishes very early on. There's one scene in particular where the lead character goes into there's a little bit of a chase, and he winds up in this crypt. And when the camera first goes to his perspective in there, it does this panoramic spinning around, and it the lens is totally distorting, but Leone is actually using the lens distortion to create a sense of palpable tension, because this guy's just wound up in this tomb, and it's very much reminiscent of the scene in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly when Tuco makes it to the graveyard during the Ecstasy of Gold, and he starts looking around for the correct grave, and then the camera starts spinning until it basically the wall, the surroundings start to blur. Well, you actually see that here. That's just one example that I noticed right off the bat. So again, this is the U.S. cut. This was released here in the States by MGM originally. So from what I understand, it is a little bit shorter. There is apparently a little bit more footage in an Italian version. And there is a Blu-ray out in Europe that's a little pricey that apparently does have that cut. But I don't think the transfer is as good. I haven't checked it out for myself yet. But I really wanted to get this because it is a big upgrade over the old DVD. And it carries over the commentary. It's the only extra on here. But as always, if you have a commentary from one of the real tried and true experts, it's better than 15 little talking head featurettes that just tell you the plot of the movie. So as the back cover tells you, this is a track by Sir Christopher Frayling, who is really the great champion of Leone, who, of course, wrote the definitive book on Leone, Something to Do with Death, which, if you haven't read that, stop what you're doing. It's a little pricey. Go read it or find it in your local library. You won't be able to put it down. And he's one of our great cinematic gurus of the film medium. He didn't receive a knighthood for lack of effort. But anyway, it's a fantastic commentary track, as all of his tracks are, and he just talks through the whole thing, and you basically get an entire course seminar in Leone and Italian sword and sandal films, which were known as Poplum films, and the cast and crew on this. But I really think this picture is much more than the sum of the sum of its parts adds up to a much greater experience than you would think. I put off seeing this film for years when I was growing up and becoming obsessed with Leone's films, thinking, oh well, it's not going to be any good. The ratings on it, everybody says it's just okay. It's not that great. This is a lot of fun, and you see so much of Leone's style and the darkness of his westerns, the grittiness, and that nice cynical humor he had that was so distinctive. It's right here in Colossus of Rhodes, and you see him really trying to experiment and put his own stamp on the sword and sandal film genre. So absolutely essential. And hopefully one day I can get that European disc and check out the longer cut. But I still love the US cut as it is, and this is a nice big upgrade over the DVD. So next up is another one. Been meaning to pick it up. Big upgrade over the DVD, like massive. And this is a film I hadn't rewatched in way too long. and I put it on, and I was like, oh my god, I forgot how good this is. That is, of course, the 1966 Roman Polanski picture, The Fearless Vampire Killers, or pardon me, but your teeth are in my neck. Which, of course, if you've never seen this film, the title and the poster artwork, which is beautifully included here on the Warner Archive release, that should tell you kind of what you're in for. This is, it's a parody film, really. It's a parody film of, the classic vampire story, and especially of Hammer horrors and how they had gotten in the mid to late 60s. But it's just a beautifully, exquisitely made, exquisitely designed picture. It's beautiful to look at. It's haunting in a strange way, but it's also laugh out loud funny. It's very bizarre and very much ahead of its time. There's really not many films that blend horror and comedy very well to this extent. And really, the flavor you get when you watch this film, there's nothing else quite like it. Again, this is beautifully shot, beautifully designed. The sets, the costuming, the color, the musical score. It's an experience just to look at and to listen to. And then the jokes are usually, there is some slapstick, but it is very European. It is very cynical and dark humor. And of course, being directed by Polanski, you kind of expect that. Like it's not surprising that that's how the humor goes. Of course, when it was released here in the States, it was heavily cut and censored down by MGM. They just, cut scenes out willy-nilly, and then they put a animated cartoon opening title sequence over the film, which makes no sense, doesn't fit the film at all, and really hurt it commercially in the US, where it pretty much bombed. They just dumped it. So ever since the Laserdisc came out, the original full-length European version without that intro and with the correct introduction has been available on video. Now you can't see the U.S. censored, I shouldn't say censored, the U.S. hacked down version is what I should say, or the MGM cut. So thankfully now you can see the film proper. And I had just rewatched this. I got in the Laserdisc, and I watched that and was really impressed with the transfer, and was like, man, I forgot how good this film was. And so when the sale rolled around, I'm like, I've got to get the upgrade, because the DVD was pretty good, but this is one of those Warner Archive discs. You put the Blu-ray on and you compare it, because it is a new scan. It is just gorgeous. This is one of those, just buy it for the picture transfer alone. This film kind of doesn't hit everybody's funny bone. I will admit the opening is a bit slow, so the first time you see this, if that's kind of throwing you, you just go with it. It is setting up atmosphere, so that is like a number of Hammer films and like most classic horror films. It does take some time, like at least the first reel and a half, to set up atmosphere. But I mean, once it gets going, I mean, it's absolutely hysterical, and it's not just slapstick. It's a lot of intelligent humor, and it's all very dark and very cynical, and it goes places you would not expect a film like this to go. And it does have one heck of a great ending that is unexpected. Again, it's unexpected when you see the film, but when you know it was made by Roman Polanski, then it's like, well, maybe, yeah, that does make sense. They do include the whole animated sequence that originally opened the U.S. cut, so you can view that just to see the crazy way MGM tried to sell this picture. They were really clueless; they had no idea. And then you get a vintage making up featurette that was included on the DVD plus the trailer. The one thing you don't get is, of course, this film starred Sharon Tate before her untimely death. So there was, on the Laserdisc, included one of those old school promotional featurettes talking about her as the newest contract star for the studio. And so when you see that, it's one of those things. It kind of takes on a slightly bizarre quality, because it was obviously a promo fluff piece, just like they did for every new starlet or every new young actor who was supposed to be their new contract star. And so it's her and makeup and wardrobe, and talking about starting out being an actress and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to see, but it has that very bizarre quality, because we all know what unfortunately happened to her. But that's only on the Laserdisc. I don't know if they lost it or just didn't copy it over or something. So that's the one thing you would have to hold on to the LD for. It's just tacked on at the end after the trailer. But this is a must-own from the archive. enormous upgrade over the DVD, and just absolutely gorgeous. So this is another must from the archive. And then last but not least, this is another title I've been meaning to pick up for ages. It was one of the earlier discs that they did, and it's another title I picked up because I'm going back through the Sean Connery filmography. And I have this on Laserdisc. I never got to pick it up on DVD, and there is a commentary that was done for the DVD that they carried over here, so I'm really excited to check that out. This is the incredibly underrated, uh, really great film from 1975, The Wind and the Lion, which was directed and written by John Milius. It's amazing to think that Sean Connery did this film practically back to back with the 1975 John Huston masterpiece, The Man Who Would Be King. They have similar vibes in terms of character and story and setting and stuff, but other than that, they're totally different. But he gives two completely different, larger than life performances in both films, and back to back. I mean, it's one of those examples where you look at an actor's career and you look at any two films they did back to back, and these two performances are so completely different from each other and so larger than life. You know, he could have won the Oscar for either one, and really should have. I mean, they're two of his best performances of his entire career, and of course he really was able to latch on to the great dialogue that John Milius was able to pen, and he's not the only one. There are many standout performances here, many great John Milius monologues throughout this, so it's worth watching just for the tone, the performances, the location work, the photography, the absolutely gorgeous Jerry Goldsmith score is, oh god, it's incredible. But it's worth it just for the writing alone. I mean, the dialogue. There are scenes in this where the main characters just go on these beautiful monologues where you're just hanging off of every single word. And Connery remembered that, and of course, famously requested Milius come in and write some of his big speeches for Hunt for Red October many years later. So, of course, this carries over the commentary from the DVD and a vintage featurette, which was also on that disc. But it is a newer scan and uses the gorgeous original poster art. So I'd always meant to pick up the DVD, never got to. They did go ahead and upgrade the audio to 5.1, so it's DTS HDMA lossless 5.1. Would have been stereo somehow, or unless it had a 70mm blow up. The old Laserdisc is actually ProLogic encoded, so that's stereo surround, and the DVD was 5.1, and sounds great, particularly with the amazing Jerry Goldsmith score. So you do get that nice bump to lossless audio and discrete 5.1. Incredible film if you've never seen it. Makes a perfect double feature with The Man Who Would Be King, another essential great title from the Warner Archive. So there's the spines. So you can see those again. Again, this is just a short video, but I wanted to go over my latest pickups from the Warner Archive. So that does it for this video. Thanks for checking this out, and I hope to make the regular Blu-ray updates much more of a regular function of this channel. And I always find it cool to see what people pick up, and whether it's new or older, or what's been on their wish list, because of course it helps you remember titles you want to pick up, or introduce brand new titles you may have not even thought of or been aware of. So as always, thank you so very much for watching, and keep the physical media dream alive.